The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. Every girl should have the opportunity to rise to her full potential, says Natasha Cattell, the CEO of One Girl Can, a British Columbia-based not-for-profit organization dedicated to providing assistance to some of the world's most vulnerable girls. Cattell adds, girls with high potential deserve a chance to rise above extreme poverty and gender inequality. As citizens of the world, we have a responsibility to aid others in reaching their full potential. Cattell says One Girl Can is dedicated to educating, training, and mentoring girls to empower them to achieve their goals, earn a meaningful living, and build better lives for themselves, their families, and their communities. One Girl Can is an organization that's built on three foundational pillars: education, training, and mentoring. Cattell notes that she is a living example of what one girl can do given a chance. She came from humble beginnings in Trinidad, then went on to graduate from the Stanford Graduate School of Business's LEAD program, and ultimately became the president of Happy Planet. I invited Natasha Cattell to join me for a conversation that matters about the mission of One Girl Can. Natasha, welcome.
Thanks, Jared.
Why is it important that we recognize that we can do something to help other people, and it doesn't matter where they live, reach their potential? Why should we care?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think I take it back to my own personal story. As you mentioned, I grew up in Trinidad, very humble beginnings. I often reflect on the fact that if a handful of very special people in my life didn't care, I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you today. And so the culmination of a lot of micro moments in my life where people have either opened a small crack in a door, they've been encouraging, they've given me a shot at school, they've given me a shot at a job, they ultimately end up in terms of a very powerful moment. So one moment of caring can really be exponential in terms of the benefit that you can have to a human being. And as you say, I'm a living example of that. I started off in Trinidad. I've had a beautiful journey to becoming a Canadian citizen, getting educated in North America, leading a very values-based organization, and then sitting here today as the new CEO of One Girl Can.
Well, you're right. One or a number of small encouragements and bits of support led you on a path that ultimately led you to come here. And now you're such a strong contributor to this country that we are all calling home. And so we can say, well, you know, it's half a world away, why should I care? The answer is you don't really know. You have no way of knowing what your actions will ignite and how they will play themselves out.
Well said. You know what, I did not know where necessarily I would end up, but I think back to exactly what you said. I started very far from home. Vancouver is very far from where I grew up. But because of sort of that journey, I will never stop paying back to Canada for letting me into this country as an immigrant. I will never stop paying back to the many people who've helped me, to the strong female mentors I've had in my life, to the strong educational system that I was able to acknowledge and to give back in terms of those moments. So I think it is a little bit random. You can't quite tell. But it's what you're saying in that the pay it forward in terms of the benefit is something that is larger than all of us. And so I think that's really what attracted me to this opportunity and this role.
Well, and we're going to get to that in a moment, but we're touching on a theme that's really important to me, and that is we can do things and hope that they ignite certain outcomes. But we shouldn't become fixated on it that it has to be a particular outcome, because we don't know. But the beginning of something creates a chain reaction maybe in one person, but then it multiplies out. And so this is why I celebrate what you're doing, because you're saying we want to give as many people as possible, namely young girls who don't have access to some of those educational and mentoring opportunities that become so important in being able to rise above situations of poverty. But it's so important for us to do that. So tell me a little bit about the history of One Girl Can and where your primary focus is in helping girls in Africa.
Yeah, it's a good question. So One Girl Can started back in 2008. It was started by Lottie Davis. She's an extraordinarily inspirational entrepreneurial leader in her own right. She also is the founder of AG Hair. Over the last 15 years, the organization has been able to touch over 11,000 girls and to raise over $11 million. I know, fantastic, hey? And this all started from a very small team and vision here in Vancouver. And primarily we're focused on the Kenyan market as a starting point for where we're looking. We look globally in terms of where we wanted to really reach girls who were very vulnerable. So we're focused on the Kenyan market, but in terms of where we're going, our vision for the next 10 years is to become a global hub for generational change for women, which is a very big, powerful statement. We're looking at this from the perspective of there is a global crisis around gender inequality today. And really what we want to do is to look at it from the perspective of how can we help women in the most vulnerable parts around the planet in terms of helping them overcome extreme poverty and to break that cycle that they're often stuck into. So ideally we're looking at Kenya sort of as our first place where we start off, but our vision is really to grow, to find the areas around the world that can really benefit this in terms of reaching those girls.
Got to get you to hang on for a second while we take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So how do you deliver on the ground in Kenya?
Like, yeah, great question.
You've got this money, you're putting it into use there, and it's having an impact on thousands and thousands of girls. How does it manifest itself?
Great question. We have a team dedicated working in Kenya. So we have a Kenyan team, a Kenyan board. That team really oversees the overall programming. So here in Canada, we do a lot in terms of obviously the fundraising portion of it. But the funds go directly to the 3 pillars that we talked about in Kenya. So we have educate. So a portion of any dollars that we raise goes towards sponsoring girls in university and vocational training in Kenya.
So money directly to those girls?
Exactly, money directly to the girls in terms of sponsoring girls to go anywhere from the end of primary school into university, so helping them bridge that. The second area that it goes into is training. So we help facilitate training programs, workshops, internships for girls, so actually getting them into meaningful job placements. And then the last is mentoring, which is very cool, and this is where I think, to your question, we have a lot of opportunity. We've been working more and more with corporations and individuals who are really interested in mentoring these girls, because a big part of obviously being successful is to have the right coaching in terms of life skills and, you know, building confidence in terms of what it takes to be successful in their careers. So those are the 3 pillars that we activate in Kenya, and that you know, has been the model that we're going to continue to build out for future.
So I'm guessing now, because we can connect around the world online, mentors can be from anywhere.
Absolutely, that's the joy. If anything, we're actually looking as our next phase for people who are interested in virtually mentoring, because there's no reason why anybody across the world cannot mentor. Our internship program is similar. One of the big benefits of what we're doing for the girls is more and more, increasingly now post-pandemic, people are working remotely. So being able to place the girls with internships globally is something that we're focusing on. We have our partnership with a company that helps us foster these internships, and it pays back in so many ways, because it's a way to globally connect the world, but also for people in organizations around the world to feel good about being able to help the girls. But you know, you're also hiring girls, you're making a big impact at a fraction of the cost that you would maybe hiring somebody from, you know, a different market. So it's a real win-win situation all around.
I remember the late Hans Rosling, who was this remarkable statistician, and he talked about changes in countries where the girls were educated. And the higher the level of education amongst girls, the better everybody did.
You don't have to tell me about that one.
The entire country. Birth rates fell, productivity went up, GDP expanded, and then there was a much greater concern around the issues that are pressing of our time. You know, environmental impacts, you know, hatred, war. The benefits are remarkable.
They are remarkable. I think this is and then thank you for saying that, because this is the part of the conversation that we want to continue to spread awareness of, just how important having women gender equality globally is. There's so many benefits to it. As you say, it makes for better business. More creativity, innovation. It's better for the economy. It's better for the climate. You know, some of the areas around the world where there's a high degree of population, it strains the climate in terms of overpopulation. There are so many reasons why, you know, this is timely and topical in terms of many of the issues that we're facing today. And so at the end of the day, this is why I think a lot of what we have to say is a really, really important topic in terms of why we just need to be able to support the world's women in terms of contributing to the health of our entire world's economy and future.
So, can you give me, you know, one or two stories about some of these young girls that have benefited from the program early on? And everything, of course, is always growing and changing, but, you know, making it as personal as possible allows other people to see what the impact of their supporting what you're doing.
Yes,
can
absolutely. We have our gala that's coming up. So the girl that we're featuring her name is Celine.
Yeah.
So she's one of our graduates. She's actually graduating.
From where?
She's graduating from university with a degree in information technology, so it's a university in Kenya.
Yeah.
The word that I would use to describe her is confident. And I think that's one of the things that I love about the beginning to the end point of these girls who complete the program. That's the word that keeps coming up, confidence. And so if I have to say we did one thing right, the fact that we were able to get these girls, and when you see the starting point, because, you know, some of the journey, it is truly humbling. They come from slums. There's no running water, electricity. Their entire family is very poor. Celine's story is remarkable because one of the things that really will strike you is it's not just about her. She talks about the confidence and what the program has done for her, also as a daughter. Because she's also a role model, a daughter. She supports a family and her community. And one of the fantastic things about the program is the girls' interest in giving back. So many of the girls come back and either work for us or they contribute their salary towards supporting the program or even mentoring other girls. So they stay really connected. So there's that payback that you talked about, that real interest in continuing the journey. And again, it's exponential, right? It's not just her. It's an entire family, community, big network that gets impacted by her. But Celine is really inspiring. She'll be featured at our upcoming gala, but I thought that was a good example.
So are you bringing her here for the gala?
We are trying really hard to. She's stuck in the visa process, but usually we bring a girl every year to the gala because it's just such a powerful example of seeing. We are still working on it, fingers crossed.
If not, she'll have to join you virtually.
She will join us virtually. That's definitely the plan.
This is our second break. We'll be back in a moment. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. You know, as you talk about confidence, I am reminded that, 10, 12 years ago, I was up at the Penticton Indian Band doing a project and talking to some young Indigenous youth who had gone through an education program. And one guy who seemed like so remarkably shy, I didn't think he was going to talk to me. I asked him if he would, come outside after the ceremony and do an interview with me on camera. And he goes, sure. So we go outside, and he told me about, in essence, having gone through a program like this. And I said to him, so if you were talking to another young person who was in a similar situation to yours, and they're like, yeah, I don't know that I want to take this program, what would you tell them to do? And he says, I tell them to do it. Yeah. And I said, why? And he said, well, because you'll learn a lot. I said, well, what was the most important thing that you got out of this program? And he said, well, self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And I went, why is that important? And he gave me the most beautiful quote, and I have repeated this over and over and over again because I think it's so true. He said, well, once you have self-confidence, it's like wildfire. You have no idea where it's going to take you. And is that not the magic then? So we give somebody a belief in themselves that they can learn, they can advance their skills, and who knows where that will take them, because they now believe that they have that capacity to grow.
Absolutely. You know what? That's why I said the confidence. When we talk about how do we measure impact, we're like, well, we could count girls going into schools and graduating, getting placement. I actually think what you're saying is the overriding measure, that confidence, that belief that you can change the world, that you can actually make impact. And you see it in the girls when they're graduating from the program. The ambition to actually make their mark is incredible, and it spreads. You can't help but feel it as well. And so I love that you share that story, because that's exactly how I feel.
Well, there's another component of what you're doing that I also think is extraordinary, and that is the mentorship element. I'm a part of a program here in British Columbia, BD Luminaries, where Ryan Beatty is supporting people of high potential who can't afford to go to university, but he's supporting them. But most importantly, he's also mentoring them with other people. And in doing so, you build relationships. You start to build a network. You get drawn into communities that think alike. And so you're doing this. Tell me a little bit about how you develop this mentorship program and what the benefits are to the girls who become a part of it.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it's one of our opportunities to really grow in the future. We're really at the beginning stages of the mentorship right now. We're now piloting our first groups of girls during mentoring. But as an example, we're partnering with a couple companies in Kenya, and we're also looking at offering it up with mentoring with Canadian companies. And the whole idea really is that you can partner your employees, or as an individual, you can volunteer, be matched with a girl, and provide the ongoing mentoring in terms of what are the things that they need. We're in the stage of, we get a lot of feedback from our girls, once they've graduated, and there's actually that sort of like that moment of drop off where you can finish part of the educational piece, but then still get lost in the system. And to your point, the mentoring component in terms of, well, what happens next, and what are those skills that I need to now succeed in the workplace, are not necessarily there in terms of a support system. And I can say definitely as a woman in business, having the access to mentoring has been oftentimes the make or break in terms of being able to navigate through. So I think it's an opportunity for us to continue to build on, and that's, kind of my message would be, as we're looking to the future where we need a lot of support from the community.
Third and final break. We'll be right back. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. So you go to education to get skills, whether it is in IT or engineering or accounting or whatever it is, or a particular skill around how to, fix things. But you still learn that skill. In the mentoring process, you get to help build networks, but is one of the other benefits of that the development of interpersonal skills? And then how important is that?
Yeah, it's hugely important. And I'm going to take it back to my own experience and what I do. My education started off in the Caribbean, but coming to Canada is a huge leap in terms of culture and ways of doing business in North America. And so the same things can be said for the girls coming out of university, especially if they're aspiring to work in a corporate environment, or even if they're looking to have global internships and mentoring. So a big part of that is being able to navigate that portion of it. So you're right, it's not just about the relationships, but having the sharing of how do you go about being successful in that early phase of your career. And I think, again, that's why we've highlighted that, because there's been almost like an area of vulnerability if we stopped at the training, the university.
Yeah, no, I think it's vitally important. I think about, I had, when he was the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Perry Bellegarde, in for a conversation. We were talking about how do we move forward. And he was talking about the importance of relationships. And he said something that I went, oh my gosh, I have to write that down and put it on my wall. And he's absolutely right. He said, if you cannot build relationships, which speaks to the interpersonal skills side of this, then you can't build anything. Right. And so we have to figure out, how do we connect? And I think, and part of that, especially if you have international mentoring, you're helping to cross cultural divides. Yes. You say this, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, okay, well, we might say it this way.
Exactly.
And then you start to open up channels and create methods of communication that otherwise would get missed, and then opportunities get cut off.
Exactly.
I know I sound like I'm a cheerleader for you.
You do sound like a cheerleader.
Well, because I believe that we all have a responsibility to one another to lift each other up through support rather than through criticism or attack. And so I believe that, this is what is important in life.
It is what's important. And of course, you're touching on it. The mentoring is not just about translation of, skills. It's like you say, it's also being a coach and a supporter, because there are many moments. And I think our greatest fear is that these girls don't land in meaningful employment and stick. So also mentoring means being able to just be that person who supports them and coaches them to hang in there, because there's many opportunities to still fall out of the system. So I think that's the other part of coaching and mentoring.
Well, there's a program out at UBC called MyTax, and they invite top students from primarily India, but other places to come here. Now, these are students who are going to the Indian Institute of Technology, which is, the equivalent of MIT. But they go, we want you to have a connection to Canada, because if you're going to have productive and fruitful careers, we want you to be able to say, yes, but I know that there's an opportunity in Canada. And so how important is what you're doing also about building long-term future relationships? Because if these young girls, as they advance into their careers, remember that, there were Canadians that came to their aid.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you don't really experience it until you get to Kenya, but we're like we're the shining stars in Canada in terms of supporting them. And again, I go back to my own personal life story. You never forget. I remember growing up in Trinidad, the Canadian government had donated some ambulances to the island, and I was a little girl, and it was in the news. And early on, I remember thinking, these are like the best people in the world. I want to live there one day.
And you are.
And here I am, right? Here I am.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left. What do you need? For people who are saying, okay, I really like what you're doing, what do you need now to help you expand your mission?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there's a couple of things that we do need support on. Like I said, I think if you have the opportunity to support a charity, encourage yourself to look beyond your own backyard. Look globally. There's a real strong case for global giving. And as much as we have our own vulnerable populations here in Canada, we do have a support system. So there are many areas of the world which they absolutely have no support system, and they are in much more dire straits in terms of the basics of living. So consider looking beyond our own borders. I think the other thing is, get involved. If this is a cause you believe in, and you believe that gender equality truly is something that is better for the health of our planet, get involved. We have a couple areas, like I say, we're looking for involvement, whether it's financial support. We're also definitely looking at people who are interested in supporting us and the training, the internships, the mentorships from a corporate or individual point of view. And then the last I have to mention, our gala. Our gala is coming up on April 19th. It will be at the Commodore Ballroom, and it's going to be a really fun night. I've heard that it's always a mixture of laughter and tears. But it'll be a really fun night to experience what we're doing and to celebrate some of the impact and to get a sense as to where we're going for future.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
We live in a global community.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks.